The most dangerous part of dry suit buoyancy is not the suit itself. It is making the wrong choice about how you use it. Because if your buoyancy strategy breaks down underwater, the result is not just a messy trim or a little discomfort. It can turn into a runaway ascent very fast. And in this video, I'm breaking down BCD Primary, Suit Primary, and the failure modes that matter most to dry suit diving and managing your buoyancy with 2 potential buoyancy control devices. So let's start with the method that most technical agencies teach first. The BCD Primary approach is simple in concept. You put just enough gas in your dry suit to prevent squeeze and maintain insulation to stay warm. That's it. Once you've added that small amount on descent, you keep the suit mostly stable with only small amount of adjustments here and there. And then you use your BCD for the majority of your buoyancy control. The mechanics work like this. As you descend, you add small puffs to the suit until the material stops pressing against your skin and your undergarments regain their loft. Then you stop. From that point forward, the BCD handles everything. Going deeper, relieve squeeze and keep loft to the dry suit and add bulk of the gas you need to the BCD. Going up, vent the BCD and then the dry suit. The suit stays close to a constant volume. Now, this is the common technical standard for a reason. The BCD is designed for rapid venting and precise lift control. It keeps the gas centered on your back, and it usually has multiple dump options positioned for different body orientations. Now, I know there are some dry suits with wrist dumps and also ankle dumps, but a lot of them also just have the standard shoulder dump as well. So ultimately, you can dump gas from your inflator hose, your shoulder dump, or your lower dump valves, depending on your trim and your system. The suit exhaust valve, by contrast, is usually a single point on the upper arm, as I just mentioned, and it can be slower to vent large volumes quickly unless your positioning is ideal. And here's the quick visual. The BCD bubble stays behind your torso. The suit bubble can travel up and down depending on your trim. And as a result, the pros are significant. Faster response time, more predictive center of gravity, easier to dump gas during a fast ascent. You're not fighting gas migration or worrying about air shifting to your feet if your trim is imperfect. Instead, the BCD keeps the lift exactly where you need it. Yes, there's a learning curve. You're managing 2 inflators instead of 1. However, here's the thing. The suit needs less management except for big depth swings to vent or add a little bit more to. You add gas once, maybe twice on a deeper dive, and then you're done. And after that, the rest is pure BCD work, which is exactly what you're doing in a wetsuit for however many dives you've logged prior to learning dry suit. For many divers, I believe this is an easier way to start dry suit diving as well, because you're building on the skills you probably already have used if you started in a wetsuit. You already know how to manage buoyancy with a BCD. You already understand the muscle memory of finding the inflator and dump valve. So the main new element is adding that initial buffer of gas to the suit, and then you're back to familiar territory. And if you're enjoying this video, now's a great time to like and subscribe. If you found this information valuable, share it with other divers. I post weekly content to help divers grow their skills, build confidence, and explore the ocean with curiosity and care. And if you're looking for the latest and greatest in the scuba diving industry, I have a free monthly newsletter you can find in the description below. I'll see you there. So next, there's another school of thought that says simplicity beats precision, and it's worth understanding. So let's talk about the dry suit primary as a primary buoyancy control method. The minimalist approach flips the script. 1 inflator, 1 gas volume to manage, using the suit for both thermal protection and buoyancy. On paper, this sounds cleaner. Fewer moving parts, less task loading, potentially more loft in your undergarments because you may keep more gas in the suit throughout the dive. The appeal is real. You add gas to the suit on descent, and as you move up or down in the water column, you adjust that same volume. No swishing systems, no juggling of which button does what. Now, it's worth noting you often still wear a BCD just in case your dry suit floods, but you don't use it much if at all. Just you and your suit, managing one variable instead of two. Now do this right now, mentally. Picture where the highest point of your dry suit is. That's where the air, the gas in your suit is going to travel. The bubble is going to go there. But there's a physics problem that doesn't care about simplicity. Gas migrates to the highest point. In a BCD, that's your back or your shoulders, which is often where you want the lift. In a dry suit, if you're not perfectly horizontal, the highest point can become your legs and your feet. This creates what I call the gas in the boot scenario. The old, it's gonna pull you up to the surface whether you're like it or not by the feet scenario. Not a good scenario you want to be in for sure. Imagine you add gas to stay neutral, but you want to take a photo of a cool fish and you lean a little bit forward. Your trim goes a little bit negative. Your feet start to rise and you basically headbutt that fish instead. You compensate by changing your body angle, and if you do it the wrong way, you can send even more gas to your feet. Now, you're fighting a feedback loop toward inversion, and if you're not careful, you're doing an uncontrolled ascent with your fins above your head, dragging you to that surface. Of course, in this scenario, you learn how to do the roll to redistribute the gas in the suit. We all learned that as part of our dry suit certification, but it can be jarring when you are learning. If you ever felt your boots get lofty, you already know this problem. To be clear though, this isn't that using the suit primary is wrong. Instead, the penalty for sloppy posture and trim is higher. Trim is what I consider a more intermediate skill for diving, and it can take a lot of divers quite some time to learn. That's why I feel dry suits can be a bit beginner unfriendly, as it forces you to learn trim fast. Some might think that's a good thing, but I do think it's more likely to convince more new divers that diving isn't for them. Then there's the venting challenge. Suit exhaust valves can be a bit slower for big buoyancy changes unless positioning is ideal. They're designed to let a controlled amount of gas escape, not rapidly dump volume during an emergency ascent. And position matters, even more than your BCD. For example, if your exhaust valve is on your left shoulder and you're rolled slightly to your right, or your upper body is not upright, you're venting inefficiently or not at all until you fix your posture. You might even find small little gas bubbles are trapped in certain points on your body until you wiggle around and get it up to your shoulder. Overall, this method requires excellent trim and body awareness to execute safely. Experienced divers can make it work, and might even prefer this method if they never dive wetsuits, as it's simpler. In fact, I know plenty who prefer it, but for newer dry suit divers, it's often a higher workload in my humble opinion, and higher consequences for small mistakes. You're asking your body to maintain a level of precision that takes time and focused practice to develop, and you're doing it while managing a buoyancy system that actively works against you if you make a mistake. So, we've covered two distinct philosophies: the BCD primary for precision and control, or the suit primary for simplicity and potentially more suit loft, which keeps you warm. However, there's another consideration that matters more than either of those. So let's talk about when something breaks. So here's the real question, the one that separates divers who understand their gear from divers who just follow a method. Can you handle a failure in either system? Quick self-check. If either inflator is stuck open today, do you know your first two moves? Let's start with one scenario. You're diving BCD primary. Everything's going great. Then your BCD inflator sticks open. Gas is flooding into your wing and you're starting an uncontrolled ascent. You disconnect the inflator hose, but now you've lost that powered inflator as your primary tool. So can you manage the rest of your dive using only your dry suit? And of course, you can still breathe in and manually add air into your BCD. But let's say for the sake, it's gonna feel more natural to start switching over and using that dry suit. And if you've been ignoring your suit inflator for the entire dive, this is going to be uncomfortable. You need to add gas to the suit to replace the lift you just lost, especially if you dumped it all because you are having an emergency ascent. But you also need to avoid the gas migration problem that we just talked about. In other words, you need to maintain horizontal trim while adjusting an unfamiliar system under stress. This is why understanding your dry suit as a primary isn't just academic, it's your backup plan. And one of the great benefits of diving dry suits is you do have that 2 potential buoyancy devices built in. Now, another scenario, you're diving dry suit as your primary buoyancy control and begins to fill your suit uncontrollably. You've got a runaway suit inflation. You disconnect the suit inflator hose and manually vent as much as you can, but now your suit is no longer providing a reliable buoyancy, and you can't control that one manually. You can't fill it manually through breathing. So, can your BCD provide enough lift if you have to vent most of the suit gas and rely on it entirely? And it's worth noting that this is the primary concern in the event of a suit flooding too, in the event that the zipper bursts. And ultimately, the answer depends on how much weight you're carrying and whether your BCD has enough lift capacity to handle your rig plus the loss of your suit buoyancy, which ideally, if you're weighted well, it should. But in the case that you're not, this is critical. If you've been diving dry suit primary and your BCD is undersized, you're heavily weighted, or you're not wearing a BCD at all, you might not have enough reserve lift to stay neutral. You could be negative. And that's the reason why understanding both systems isn't just about picking one. It's about having genuine redundancy. And here's the empowering truth. Your BCD and your dry suit aren't competing systems. They're backups for each other. So the method you choose for normal diving isn't just your starting point. It's your ideal to practice using both to become familiar and comfortable using both to control buoyancy. Ultimately, the real skill is being able to switch between them when something goes wrong. And once you understand both, you'll dive with genuine confidence. So here's what makes this exciting. You now understand both systems. You know the strengths, the limitations, and how to use each one as a backup for the other. That's not just knowledge, that's real capability. Whether you choose the BCD primary, suit primary, or switch between them, depending on the dive, you're equipped to handle whatever happens underwater. And that confidence, that's what transforms diving from something you worry about into something you truly enjoy and make every dive your adventure. And if you enjoyed this topic and you're looking to learn more about cold water and dry suit diving, check out this series here. And YouTube thinks you might like this video over here. You can check that out too. The more you know, the more you'll love and protect the ocean. Until next time.